What's up guys, welcome back to another reaction video. Today's reaction video is going to be a NASCAR one, NASCAR modifiers. Now I know this has definitely been suggested on the channel. I haven't dug any comments out yet, but I will dig them out and put them on the screen now guys. If I can't find any, I am so sorry if you were the person to suggest it. Also, before we get into this, I just want to apologise. I have got a runny nose, so I may sniffle in this video. I will try not to. But as a true British guy, I've got my cup of tea at the ready to try and fix me up while we're watching this video. I haven't seen anything about NASCAR modifiers. The thumbnail looks pretty cool. My guess would be from when they're crashing a race, they get modified to go back out there, but we'll see. Let's get straight into this reaction, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. I do daily content, general reactions, sport reactions, you name it. Let me know in the comments what you want me to react to as well. Let's try and hit 100 likes for a NASCAR video. Let's see what we got. NASCAR modifiers.
If you've watched NASCAR racing for long enough, then you've undoubtedly come across these strange looking cars and asked the question, what in the world are these things supposed to be? Well, these are NASCAR modifieds. But that only...
Okay, I won't pause much, but holy, it's an entire race of modified cars, wow.
leads to more questions. The word modified is an adjective, not a noun. Modified from what? Why are they all skewed to the left like that, and why do they look like the illegitimate offspring of an Indy car and a dune buggy? Well, let's answer some of these questions and give the modifieds their due, because they are perhaps the most important division in NASCAR's history.
It's a division.
One day, after much drunken deliberation, NASCAR was founded on February 21st, 1948, at the Streamline Hotel in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, by the way, just because I remember, I've just seen the quality of this video. This is a Slap Shoes video, so check him out. His link will be in the description, guys. Let's get back into it. This is cool. I didn't realize there was a division. Let's go.
Most of the meetings to bring the sanctioning body together were held at the Ebony Club rooftop bar over the course of weeks. Stock car racing at that time was a disparate, disorganized mess, made up of dozens of competing organizations, some of which were just outright hucksters looking to pilfer drivers out of as much money as they could.
What?
The good actors out of the bunch met with Big Bill France to create the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, NASCAR. On February 21st, the venture was official, after Bill France and his attorney had finalized all the paperwork and gotten all the signatures from the other dignitaries. But what was it that had convinced all those bigwigs from other organizations to sign away their rights to this one guy? Well, the first NASCAR race had actually been held nearly a week before the organization legally existed. On February 15th, 1948, the NASCAR Modified Division held its very first race at the Daytona Beach and Road Circuit, an absurd 4.2-mile-long temporary course just a few miles south of the Streamline Hotel.
That's
making the Modified
cool,
Division the oldest active NASCAR series. The race had gone off without a hitch and had made a great return on investment, and that was enough to get the other stock car sanctioning bodies to back Bill France. Now, to be fair, France had been running races at the Daytona Beach circuit for over a decade up to that point, and he knew what he was doing. When he made that race happen, he knew it was going to be a big hit. Okay, so modifieds existed before NASCAR did, so what exactly are they? Well, let's
yeah, what's a real race? Modified race on NASCAR? Let's find out. But it seems like modified, should trump it really if they were created first. You know what I'm saying?
Right there in the name. At that time, they were essentially just modified versions of street cars, with souped-up engines, a few body modifications, and the interiors ripped out. The most popular car to modify back then was the mid to late 30s Ford Coupe.
Ooh,
it was relatively compact and lightweight.
Very nice.
There were tons of them just laying around, and best of all, it had a big-ass engine bay that could easily have other bigger engines dropped into it. The most popular choices were Cadillac and Oldsmobile ambulance engines. Where did guys get the idea to do this? Well, during Prohibition, rum runners would do anything to their cars to get a little bit of extra speed out of them so they could outrun the cops. And even after Prohibition, dry counties and states dotted the Southeast. So tons of guys were still trying to make some extra cash and get a leg up on the authorities, even after World War II.
You gotta do what you gotta do to run away from some cops.
Their trips to the trade inevitably made it onto local short tracks all throughout the Southeast. These Frankenstein creations were the very first modifieds. And thanks to an imploding used car market after World War II, these 1930s Fords were dirt cheap. Clear into the 1970s, people were still racing them in the division. And that gets us into the rules surrounding the series and what other divisions NASCAR cooked up.
Well, when NASCAR first incorporated, they ran two main divisions, the Modifieds and the Strictly Stock division. And at first there was a lot of debate over which series would be at the top of the ticket.
The Strictly Stock series was exactly what it sounded like, cars unaltered from the showroom floor. But they had to be models from the current year or the last 2 years, meaning that those 1930s Ford Coupes were ineligible. The Modified division, however, had no restriction on how old your car could be. so guys literally ran whatever they could get their hands on. This
Holy, imagine you've got like a 20-year-old car which is struggling to start, but it's got the engine of a beast in it. That'd be pretty cool to see. That definitely would
meant that compared to the strictly stock series, the modifieds had huge fields of sometimes 70 or 80 cars vying for qualifying spots. But Bill France backed the strictly stock series above all the others, and made sure they always got the biggest payouts. He wagered that a 1936 Ford Coupe winning a race wouldn't matter much to Ford, but a brand new 1949 Ford Coupe winning at a big league NASCAR event, now that would get their attention.
That makes sense.
And wherever big companies like that start paying attention, they usually end up shelling out a lot of money.
So there we go. That is why the stock race, the main race, took over. Because at the end of the day, it's money. It's all money. I should have guessed really. It's all money. They want the newest car which they're trying to sell, winning a race. So people go, I could do me with some of that car, you know? That's what I'm saying. Bad accent, but you know what I'm saying.
The strictly stock division had an enormous potential for growth, but it was far slower compared to the modifieds, which were still a fan favorite. After all, having common men do uncommon things behind the wheels of dirt cheap race cars is a lot more allure to the average person than watching a slower, bulkier, but newer car run around in thinner fields. So starting in the 1950s, Bill France dropped the name and rechristened the division the Grand National Division, which would go on to become the NASCAR Cup Series, and freed up rules to allow more modifications with engines and suspension. Eventually, the speeds of the Grand National cars overtook the modifieds, and the rest was history. The modified division would remain a second-tier series for decades. Even still, the modifieds were a terrific breeding ground for new talent entering the sport. The first ever NASCAR winner,
similar to like the Truck Series and the Xfinity right now, a breeding ground. I don't know if a modified, we'll find out if a modified still continue to this day. I haven't heard of it and I haven't seen it, so potentially not. But again, I'm only new to it, so there's a high chance it is going. So we'll find out.
Byron won that first race on the beach in 1948, and across a grueling 52-race schedule that stretched from mid-February all the way into November, he won the very first NASCAR championship after collecting 11 wins on the season, including 4 in a row. In 1949, he won the very first strictly stock championship as well, becoming the very first NASCAR two-division champion. Others that made a name for themselves in the series that first year include all the Flock brothers, Curtis Turner, and Marshall Teague, who all had wins there and went on to win dozens of races in the Grand National Division later. As the years went by, the looser rules of the modified division began to get exploited, and by the time the 1960s rolled around, we began to see cars that looked more like the modifieds of today. Those old 36 Fords had wider axles installed on them to help them corner better, and eventually somebody had the bright idea to just offset the entire body to the left side, since all the tracks would run counterclockwise.
Wow, just bring it back for 1 second. Look at the state of that car, in a good way, in a good way. Are we going to get it? Oh, it's not what it is to get. There we go. Look at that, man. I like it. Creativity. I love it.
Clockwise. The modifieds were no stranger to drivers just ripping the fenders off their cars to reduce weight, and since aerodynamics were pretty much unheard of at the time, it was a popular thing to do. Eventually, modifieds became a de facto open-wheeled series, but full-fendered cars were still popular as well. However, open-wheeled cars have a tendency to lock wheels and just hop off of one another. So heavy-duty bumper bars, aka Nerf bars, were added all the way around the cars to fix this problem, getting just one step closer to the modifieds we see today. I said the rules were loose, but to put it bluntly, they were basically none when it came to body mods. I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure Tech Inspection didn't even have body templates you had to adhere to. You could just about run whatever your heart desired. Entire fields were just a hodgepodge of cars whose models spanned across decades, and they all looked radically different from one another.
That's awesome.
Not a single car was identical to another one. Don't believe me? Well, here's the 1974 Permatex 200.
Holy, yeah, I believe him now. You can literally see 4 or 5 cars, all just completely different shapes, different sizes, all running in the same race. That is cool, man. At the end of the day, I guess it's a skill to predict, especially in them times when there weren't as much technology, as you were saying, on slipstream, aerodynamics and stuff like that, to predict what's going to be faster. That is pretty cool. Yeah, I like that.
From Daytona, the modified season opener that year. Now, they didn't run on the big track, they raced on the infield road course instead. Yeah, that series was absolutely batshit insane, and I loved it. That right there is a 1970s Chevy Chevelle, I think. That's a mid-30s Ford Coupe. That's a Camaro, maybe. And this is apparently a Ford Mustang, according to the announcer. Yeah, this was the Frankenstein League for sure. And pretty much all of the major innovations in the Grand National Division that popped up in the 50s and 60s first saw the light of day in the modifieds. Anti-sway bars, purpose-built chassis, souped-up engines and carburetors. They all went through the modified division first. This was the proving grounds for whatever cockamamie stuff gearheads could cook up. But that still begs the question, how did we get from a series where everything goes to what we have today where cars are all pretty much uniform? Well, the NASCAR modifieds entered their modern era in 1985, when the schedule got condensed from 80 or 90 events across the country down to 30 or 20 races across short tracks in the Northeast, where most of the interest had already migrated to.
Okay.
Races at Stafford Springs, Martinsville, and Thompson Speedway became crown jewel events, and the rules became way stricter. But even into the modern era, a king of the division had already emerged, Richy Evans. Evans won the NASCAR Modified Championship 8 times.
Just look at the state of that car. Holy, that was a state.
In a row.
In a good way.
9 times total. From 1978 to 1985, no one could challenge his stranglehold over the series. And only a fatal accident in the final race of the season in 1985, after he had already locked up the championship, could stop him. His car designs of the mid-80s became...
So, rest in peace if that is the case. I think they did say that. That is very sad, and that's not what we want to hear. Thank God no driver's been affected in 2001, but that is awful news.
Became the standard that NASCAR would adopt for its new modern era modifieds.
That
And
makes
since
sense.
then, the layout and design of these cars has changed very little, and for good reason. Richy was a penny pincher, a trait he had picked up from his parents back on the farm he grew up on in Rome, New York. As such, his cars were cheap to build, but wicked fast. Richy was so
Awesome. That's what
concerned
you
with
want.
cost cutting that when it came time to paint his number 61 machine, he opted for the City Public Works orange paint because he had a man on the inside who could give it to him for free. Thus, Richy
You know, well, whatever you can get for free, you know, every penny saved is a penny gained.
Evans and his orange 61 remain legendary fixtures in NASCAR history to this very day, being canonized into the NASCAR
Awesome.
Hall of Fame in 2012. After Richy Evans' passing, other drivers emerged to take the crown. Jimmy Spencer went on to win the championship in 86 and 87, Mike McLaughlin in 88, and Mike Stefanik in 89.
Awesome.
But by then, the modified division had become a shadow of its former self, now relegated to a feeder series on the level of the Busch North Series, the predecessor to the ARCA East Series today. There was still
Okay.
big talent that came through, Jeff Bodine, Steve Park, and others, but they never stayed long. The old breed like Mike Stefanik, Tony Hirschman, and Tom Baldwin stayed behind winning races and championships and took on the thankless task of being the gatekeepers to the upper divisions. Current Cup Series drivers like Ryan Preece, the 2013 Modified Series champ, had to do battle with these men to prove that they deserved rides higher up the food chain.
That makes sense.
Even
I like
still,
that.
the Modifieds continue their legacy, still racing at historic and important venues like Riverhead Raceway, just 50 miles up Long Island from New York City. And the series has shown that it can still be weird at times, having raced on a temporary short track made on the backstretch of the Daytona International Speedway, and at Watkins Glen in the mid-90s, and starting up the Southern Modified Tour in 2005, which raced at Bowman Gray Stadium and Charlotte Motor Speedway, sparking interest in this series in a part of the country that had never got to see it and grow up with it.
Fair play.
Nowadays, a lot of the tracks that made the Modified division what they are today still persist all across the U.S., but the Northeast has become their adoptive home. Tracks like Oswego, Thompson, Stafford Springs, Loudon, Wall Stadium, Riverhead, and many others now carry the torch for the series into the future. And if you ever get an opportunity, I encourage you to see these races if you can. The series is the oldest stock car organization in the country. The history of the division runs deep, and without them, NASCAR just wouldn't be quite what it is today.
Awesome.
So cheers to the NASCAR Wheel and Modified series, the unsung heroes of stock car racing. Hopefully the history books will talk about them for decades to come. Until next time, y'all take it easy.
Awesome, well that was my first endeavour with stock car modifiers. Now, I've got to check it out. I think it's pretty cool. It is a shame a little bit that the modifiers are similar nowadays. Obviously it came in, picked for best shape. At the end of the day, everyone wants to win. So as soon as somebody goes to a modification, which is going to be the fastest, the other teams are going to follow. It's as simple as that. So it's a little bit of shame about that, but I'd definitely be willing to check one out. So will you guys let me know when the next one is, potentially. Maybe do a watch along or something like that. And maybe if there's any cool races you want me to check out from a modified series, I definitely would be down. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this video. Hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it, guys. Subscribe if you're new around here, and have a fantastic day. Peace.